I talked to Matt on the phone with something, but he couldn't be budged, so, you know, I'm like, it's. Okay, now are you showing 5? Okay. All right, I will officially call to order the City Council workshop for Tuesday, April 1st, 2025 at 5 p.m. And the agenda item here is a presentation from the Minnesota Department of Transportation regarding the Highway 371 corridor study. So we'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Mayor and council member staff. Appreciate the opportunity to come back and visit with you. We were just talking about the last time we were here was back in January when we were working on the RAISE grant. And, here to, actually Jenny at that time did most of the talking, but we successfully submitted the RAISE grant. And just a quick update on that. It's in limbo right now. We had anticipated award announcements in that June timeframe, but it appears that part of the president's continuing resolution for federal budget, that there might be some cuts or reductions in some of those programs under the IIJA. So more to come, I'm sure, over the next few months, but we are actually working on contingencies for perhaps being able to backfill, maybe a small handful of those safety improvements along 371 that came out of that RAISE grant application process. And just telling Jenny that, we're in that process right now of developing our district budget for those out years from like 2030 out to 35. And our primary pavement project for 371, which actually drove this corridor study, was originally scheduled in 2030, which I think is sliding out to 31 or 32 in that budgeting process. But our hope is that maybe we can set aside some additional funds in those out years that we can use for some of those safety improvements. So stay tuned. We're not done coming back to you for updates as we, kind of tie off the corridor study here and work on the next phase of implementation. So we'll be back here to work with all of you at that point. I'm sorry, I should have probably introduced myself again. For the record, Tom Cruikshank from MNDOT, project manager for the corridor study. Bob Rogers, as you know, from our consultant team from Bolton and Mank, is here. What we really want to do tonight is just kind of give you a final work session update where the corridor study is. I know that we've had quite a bit of communication with our project team over the last 2 or 3 months to get all of our alternatives refined. And I believe it's live now on our project website, but all of those specific safety improvement areas that we were here to talk to you about back in January for the RAISE grant have been published online on our website for the public to see. So they can see in a little more detail what we call one-pagers of those specific safety improvement areas. One of the other things, a quick update for you too, and then I'll turn it over to Bob, is again we're working on the 371-210 interchange project. Happy to let you know that pretty quick we'll be announcing publicly a preferred alternative to that. Our technical advisory committee had met earlier today, and that's why Bob and I were in town earlier. We're part of that group to discuss. Again, it went from 50 options down to 5, and now we're getting it down to a singular option. So our consultant team on that project is working on getting that prepped and ready for the next round of engagement, which formally happened this summer, but there'll be an announcement, I'm guessing yet in April here, of what that preferred alternative is. So that's exciting, and that actually helps us on the corridor study, because that will help us further define that area of influence on either side of the 210 interchange area. So, and that's part of what we've been kind of waiting on to tie that off as part of the corridor. So anyway, that's where we're at. Bob, turn it over to you. We've got a little presentation update, 20-25 minutes perhaps. Please stop, put your hand up, stop us, questions along the way. And we'll wrap it up, and then I guess at the end, if we have a couple minutes, we can certainly chat with you. Otherwise, we'll move on our way and let you get on with your business.
Thank you. Does this have a pointer on it as well? No. All right. I got one in my pocket for that. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. If you could, I can advance it right here, can I? No. Which one do I hit? Oh, there it went. Are you advancing it or did I do that? Okay. Yeah, and just as a reminder, I know we've been here a few different times. I think, prior to January being here, we were here for a council update back in October, I believe it was, when we were, kind of laid out the map and we were still kind of developing and screening alternatives at that time. And so again, like Tom had mentioned, over the last course of 3, 4, 5 months, we've really been refining those and getting to our preferred options. But just to again bring everyone onto the same page, the study was conducted through MNDOT with some local partners being the two cities. Crow Wing County Region 5 Development Commission has been participating in our study team meetings as well. And the limits are, again, all the way through from the southern limit in Baxter to the intersection of County Road 18 right here in Nisswa. So that was our general study limits. We've been asked about some other projects ongoing in the area. I think one that MNDOT has, just north of town here is that 109th? Or County Road 109, was that the right county road number just up the road?
29?
29, is it 29? I'm sorry, I get my road numbers mixed up. That's a project that they have ongoing as well. That was not within our study limits, but that is definitely something that's moving forward as well. And so the public a lot of times, recognize like, oh, something on 371. But we do have pretty strict limits of what we did study. And so we are looking at, all kinds of improvements, not just on the trunk highway, but also what can be done to that supporting local system too, because it does really, trips happen on a network. They don't just happen on a single linear roadway. So that's just some quick background. No, it's not going. Couple of study goals that we had right off the bat. You've probably seen these before, and then kind of our timeline. Like I said, we've been at this for about 18 months, and we hope to wrap it up in the next 2 to 3 months with our final study report and everything. So, really we broke this into 3 phases. We're in that final phase now where we're creating the implementation plan and developing our quarter study report. As was alluded to, the RAISE grant was something done more recently in January, and we hope to like I said, have things done with a final document in kind of the May, for sure June, because that's when our contract ends. So we need to be done by that time frame. So that's kind of our ongoing schedule from here on. A couple of just other quick background ones before we jump into the more of the improvements. Again, why we were out here, we were really out here because of some of the safety issues that are found along the corridor. Some of this data is actually dated from the time that we started the corridor study to really what some of the conditions are out there today. As you all know, there's been some pretty serious crashes in the corridor, especially in this Nisswa area, just within the last kind of 12 to 18 months that we've been doing the study. But this is what we had at the base when we started our study process, and clearly we saw many locations where there were safety issues that needed to be further reviewed and resolved. We also were looking at mobility. Right now the 4-lane roadway functions for the most part pretty well through most times of the year. Now there are those outliers on the summer Fridays or Sundays and things when we could probably add 2 more lanes out there and not be able to necessarily handle all the traffic at all times. But that's not how we design roadways. But we wanted to make sure that anything that does get looked at for improvements is that we are keeping mobility as a primary kind of need out there as well, that we don't want to sacrifice our mobility just to make all the safety improvements. So we're kind of keeping those equally in our thoughts to make sure that we have both a safe and an efficient corridor. The next slide. Some of our engagement to date, again, I mentioned we had three phases. We're in the final phase, and I do believe, yeah, those updates to the website are like occurring right now. The goal was to have them done basically before the start of April, and we're right there now. So if it's not out there, it's going to be out there in the next day or 2. And then we're doing our final kind of workshops with all of our project partners. And so we previously met with Baxter a couple of weeks ago, as well as Crow Wing County met with their board, and then here tonight being able to share some of this information with you all. And then wanted to share just a couple of what you're going to find out on that website. So these are 1-pagers that we've put together for kind of each of the locations, and these are even above and beyond what was submitted in the RAISE grant. The RAISE grant was really what we thought were kind of those more near-term immediate. I think there were 15 locations that were looked at and submitted for the RAISE grant. We actually have more around 18 to 20 true locations, and one of those being here in Nisswa out at 13 and 77. We have an option there. But we weren't putting that forward in the raise grant at this time, just because there was still some question about what that concept looked like, and we'll share that with you all in a little bit. But this is just an example of what the public will find when you visit the website. Kind of provides kind of the study background, what the existing condition is at the certain location, and then what the proposed improvement is. And it's really tough when we're talking about pretty technical information here and trying to provide it in a manner that really the public can consume it. So, the little bit of text here and the little graphic, we hope that people really, dive in and look at some of the other resources that are out there too, because it's hard to tell, a story of 18 months of what we've looked at in some of these one pagers, but there's more information on the website as well. So next one. So what we did look at throughout the process, and again, we've shared some of these with you, and we've had the roll plot out and all that, but we looked at, alternative intersection controls, looked at, J-turns or reduced conflict intersections. We looked at some left in, left out or green T intersections, and also some grade separation at a few locations. In addition, we looked at areas where we might be able to do some further access management. We know that wherever we have access points on the corridor, they are points of conflict. And the fewer points of conflict we have, the safer corridor we can have. Now, we recognize that we can't go and eliminate all access. That just wouldn't be reasonable or feasible to, maintain land use and, let people get to their destinations throughout the entire corridor. And then we also looked at a number of locations where the existing or future frontage backage road system could be enhanced to provide, again, better access for the public. So maybe if you only have a short trip that you're moving north and south, maybe you don't even have to get on Highway 371. Maybe there's a local supporting roadway that can satisfy your trip, and making some of those connections can really create that opportunity to provide, again, a safer option on 371 for those people that are more regionally traveling, and a safer option for those on a local system that are trying to just get to local locations. And so we did mention that, our cuts or J-turns are something that we are looking at. I know that, it's not new to this area. There have been 4 that have been recently kind of constructed along the corridor within the Brainerd International Raceway location. But just, some people say, what is this new J-turn? And while they are relatively new, they have been around for, some years, and there are quite a number of them throughout the state that are being implemented. And so this was a resource pulled off of MNDOT's site, and I'm sure this is actually dated now. They're well over, I think, 75, and I think in another year or two, that number is going to more than double. So this is a traffic control and safety improvement tool that they're finding to be highly effective. And so it's being implemented more often. And I think as the public, sees them, gets acquainted with them, there's going to be less kind of concern or resistance to them. I kind of equate it to roundabouts. If you go back, 12, 15 years ago, and people thought of roundabouts, the vast majority of people opposed them. They really just like, oh, I hate those things. They're so confusing. They're worse than, anything. And nowadays we continually have people say, why aren't you putting in a roundabout? Why are you putting in more stop signs? Or why are you putting in more signals? I hate sitting at a red light when there's no one on the cross street. If I could just go through it with a roundabout, I'd be, happy. So I think J-turns are kind of going to be in that same vein at some point in time. I'm not saying we're there yet. But again, the facts here of the reduction in crashes and the reduction in injury crashes are really why we are considering them on our corridor here.
And probably to add to that, something new that I've learned just recently is we're doing a road safety audit on Highway 169 from Elk River up to Princeton, and the consultants that are working with us on that safety audit are telling us that Minnesota is really behind on conflict, elimination of conflicts at intersections, especially on divided 2-lane and 4-lane highways, is that there's a lot of states that aren't allowing any cross access any longer. It's all reduced conflict intersections, J-turns, and signalized J-turns. So that was kind of a learning experience for me, because here we just kind of take it for granted, but there's other states that say we won't allow them at all. So if there's any improvements on the highway, it's all J-turns, because that eliminates those high-speed right-angle crashes, and some of them just have zero tolerance for it. So we're getting there. And Bob mentioned 75. I was just thinking of just quick numbers. I think we've got 30 more scheduled in District 3 over the next 5 years. Yeah.
So that's good, more than double, for sure, most definitely. And while we didn't do a full, road safety audit, as Tom alluded to on 169, we did do a quick little study of the 4 that are located kind of in the BIR area. And just looking at from when they were implemented and opened in later in 2022, we had 20 months of data when we did this back this past summer, back had confirmed data through June of 24. And again, we saw a pretty significant, reduction in total crashes. And I think the one kind of more serious crash that was, that had occurred within that segment that we studied, involved an impaired driver. And it's really difficult to design and try to, accommodate people that, make poor choices out on the roadway. And we can't eliminate every fatal crash or every serious accident injury, especially when, drivers are doing things that you can't possibly design for. So just next slide. So, we wanted to provide a little bit of information on signalized J-turns as well. And so, this is something that in Minnesota is relatively even more new. There's only one signalized J-turn in the state right now up on Highway 65 in Anoka County. It's a location where they at one point looked at building an interchange, but due to, some site constraints, due to cost constraints and everything else, they put in a signalized J-turn. And while I think originally it had some challenges, it had some tweaks that had to be made. They had, free right turns where you could turn on red. If you were on the side street, you could make a right turn on red. They've had to eliminate that because really the sight line was not ideal for the high speed section that it is located in. They had, trips on Highway 65 that are traveling at, very high rates of speed. I think it's in that location signed at least 60 or 65. And so, yeah, so they've actually they've changed it over to a no right turn on red. And they feel like they've really, improved the safety even more. And as Tom alluded to, it's really the intent of all J-turn or reduced conflict intersections is to remove, those most serious conflicts, those right angle crashes where someone's trying to make a left turn or a straight across movement, and they're exposing themselves, on a right angle crash where that driver gets T-boned. And so when you create intersection like we're talking about here with J-turns or signalized J-turns, those movements become more of a deflecting or a glancing type of blow because someone is taking a right turn, and if they were to get hit, it's not that straight on right angle. So that's, again, why the severity of crashes goes down substantially with this type of improvement. And so I'm gonna a couple more points on that one if we can go back to it. On this, again, there's some resources out there. And so this, we're showing it's a little clip in the lower corner on YouTube. If you go and you put in Super Street or, signalized J-turn, there are videos out there. There are states that, as Tom again alluded to, there's states that are putting in many of these. We've got colleagues in our offices in the southeastern part of the country where in kind of South Carolina, North Carolina, they have entire corridors that are nothing but this. They don't have signals where you can cross over or make left turns. They're all super streets, as they call it, where you have to take right turns, go down, make a U-turn. And these signals are designed so that it shows that there's 3 signals in this very short, distance, but they're all timed and they're all basically operating as a single signal. And so what it does, it actually improves operations because you can create your signal phasing in a manner that you can actually have additional green time. And when I say green time, I'm talking about, when you can actually go through those signals on the main line or on the sides. You can actually extend the length of how much time, because no longer do you have to accommodate like a left turning phase and a through phase. And so you can actually improve operations over a standard signalized intersection. So, other benefits of them, not just on the safety benefits, but these are something that can be fairly easily implemented under, much lower cost than if we were to look at a much, a much higher, higher impact and higher capital investment of say a grade separation. If we were to, go and look at grade separating a location on the corridor, while we're looking at it on 210 and 371, it's not just a couple $1 million, it's tens of millions of dollars to build interchanges, and they often take many, many years from start to finish, from when you start planning it to when it's actually built. And something like this, again, Tom is indicating they start building this into their program now. When they've got their pavement project coming up, some of these locations can be improved because, they're fairly easy to design. They don't take much right away, if any. And again, the cost of them can be, kind of hopefully built into other improvements that you have. So now we're just going to run through a few of the locations in Nisswa. Again, we've got, concepts throughout the entire corridor, and when we were at the other workshops, we kind of shared what we had in Baxter with Baxter. And so we're just going to run through some of the ones we have here in Nisswa. This is a kind of a new intersection location where we would look at closing a few access points that are already out on Highway 371 and kind of consolidating them into a more controlled location. On Hazelwood and Smiley. This would, again, be where, we'd really rely on that frontage road system to move people to some of the businesses and other developments adjacent to the corridor. And then if you're, say, on the west side and you're on Hazelwood and you wanted to come into downtown or further north to go to Pequot or something, you'd actually have to come out, take a right, go southbound, several hundred feet, make that median U-turn to continue your trip to the north. And similarly, if you're trying to go the other direction, you do have to make the median U-turn to accomplish that. But, here again, we're looking at closing 5 locations of access and consolidating it down into a couple of right in, right out locations, which again can be much safer. The next one is one that was not included in our RAISE grant. Again, we see this as something, a location we're monitoring a little bit more, really the safety conditions that, we've kind of more recently experienced. We didn't see in the previous 10 years of our safety analysis that this location just recently has had those 2 really, unfortunate crashes with the fatalities there. So again, while there has been some incidents, we started the study, we weren't looking at this as needing major improvements, but this is an option here to put in a signalized J-turn at this location. What really gets difficult is the frontage roads, mainly on the east side of where they're located. Is there an opportunity to, remove them where they're at today, maybe shift them further to the east to get better separation from the main line? Because that's a problem today where sometimes those queues back up and really restrict people from using that continuous frontage road. And so that would be an option, is to maybe, improve some of the local system with this, but really would put in a J-turn here. We would allow left turns at this location. There are different designs even within J-turns and signalized J-turns of what kind of access you do allow. Sometimes they're just right in, right out. In areas where you have a much higher left turning movement throughout, many hours of the day and everything, you can look at putting in the full left turns. And like the one I described in Anoka County on Highway 65, that is we call it a 3/4 J-turn, where you can make the left turns off the highway. But if you're on the side street, you cannot make a left turn on or cross straight over. That is where you have to, again, do the median J-turns, U-turns, excuse me.
So this one, you can't go straight across?
You cannot go straight across, no. You would, if you were at Schaefer's and you wanted to go towards the resorts or towards Zorba's or something like that, you would have to come up to the signal from the left, the east approach, make a right turn and go north. Turn my clicker on here. So if I'm here and I wanted to go to the north, boy, it doesn't show up on your screen. That's interesting. Oh, if I walk away, you're not going to hear me though, are you? So yeah, basically the movements are, so if I'm on 371, yes, I can make a left here. If I'm on the side street, I have to take a right, do my U-turn, and either go to the west or continue to go south.
And
Similarly
same if
on
you're-
the other side. Right, so the only movement is
That's not gonna work.
that potential for the T-bone type of crash. So
Is that set in stone, or is that just an idea?
that is an option that, again, if safety conditions were to continue to be an issue here, again, this just has come up. I mean, we originally did not have a concept here, but MnDOT, obviously, if there were some unfortunate incidents, again, that continued to happen over the next 5 years, it'd be irresponsible for them to do nothing, right? And so they would have to do something. This is an option. again, relatively low cost, could be implemented somewhat quickly, and really provides all movements. Now, it's a different way of doing those movements, but it provides all movements at the intersection. The other option here, and we did look at it at a very, very high level, is putting in an interchange here. An interchange would, again, cost, $40+ million and likely impact all four quadrants of this intersection. And we know that that's an economic impact in itself. So we kind of dismiss that relatively quickly.
Real quick though, obviously I'm not an engineer, but that's not gonna work with the stacking and the amount of vehicles trying to go back and forth, especially in the summertime. There's no way you got enough room to cross that and get turned around there. That would be a nightmare with the amount of vehicles going east to west there.
So east, west, so they would have signal phases, just like the signal is out there today. They would get their opportunity to go and do that whole movement.
But
yes.
if you go and monitor it, I don't know, let's just say a Sunday morning, the traffic stacks and is backed up to Hazelwood to even make a left-hand turn. So now you got the northbound backed up with the southbound all trying to just get across the highway. There's so many times on a weekly basis that would fail. I mean,
Well, I will just say that the one in Anoka County has traffic that's more than double what is at this intersection, and it's operating just fine. But
yeah, I guess I don't think you have the stacking room. I mean,
well, again, with where the
Obviously-
frontage roads are, that is a problem with stacking and backing up and not allowing those frontage roads to continue to operate the way they are. But that's happening today as well.
yeah, I mean, I would challenge you to come out here on like a Sunday in the summertime, Sunday morning, 10, 11 o'clock, watch this. That's when, and also going into Schaefer's grocery store there. So when those fatals have happened, it was, the one, same thing, same time of day, backed up there like that, but I don't know.
Yeah, my understanding with those,
Do
one
you
was
have
on a
any
red-
idea on that, Tom, or a thought? I mean, not to put you on the spot, but I wouldn't be a big fan of that.
Yeah. I guess, I'm gonna have to defer
Right.
to them. I mean, it's their road and they have studied this in other locations. I did voice concern about this similar to you when I saw the concept for the first time. I'm skeptical, but I'll try to have an open mind with what they're showing. See how it
Sure.
goes. I guess if it doesn't work, they'll be back.
Yeah, well,
Correct.
and again, this is not one that we don't have this option in our near-term improvements. We have this as more in that midterm, probably sometime after 2035. I mean, depending on what happens with, the level of traffic volumes in the area, and that's gonna be very much depending
Right.
on development levels and all that too. The other options that we look at are a roundabout. And that was something that, the project team discussed at one time on this corridor. Do we create more of an expressway type of a facility, or do we keep the mobility really high? And everyone really wanted to keep the mobility high as much as possible. A 2x1 roundabout, again, with the traffic volumes, there's gonna be times when it doesn't work perfectly. But again, most of the traffic volumes that we find out here are very peaky. There's those big times when, you can't get a signal to work, you can't get a signalized J-turn to, work 100%. But we are finding that, again, when we model this, when we put in those volumes, when we forecast out what we think future traffic is going to be, we show that, again, it should operate at acceptable levels. Now, it's not maybe what everyone wants to see. I want to be able to come up and pass through the intersection in 4 seconds. Well, that's not going to be the case. There might be times where the signal phasing here is like, hey, the side streets are going to have to wait a minute, or whatever it is that the signal phase gets set at. So.
But on the signalized J-turn too, you're saying like, you can't, like if you're here, you can't turn right until the signalized J-turn goes green?
Well, it's certain locations, they don't allow right turn on red. I don't think we're at the point right now what we can make the recommendations of what that would be. So, It would be, again, the timing of when it gets implemented, what is the mainline traffic? You know, is this section still maintained at 60 miles an hour? There's other factors that need to play into that decision specifically.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I'm also the assistant fire chief in town. The biggest thing when we go to all those car wrecks there is everyone's confused by the changing of sometimes it flashes yellow, sometimes it doesn't. Over the last couple years, the way that that light has operated has changed so many times that our biggest thing that we hear from people on site that have crashed is we're confused because last time we came through here and the intersection light did this. That's, I guess, my feedback to you guys on when we're actually talking to the crash victims. People are a lot of times confused because it has changed so many times in the operation over the last couple of years. You know, there's been different patterns, different things that have been set up there, and I think keeping that consistent would be my biggest feedback.
Yeah, maybe you can speak to your district. I mean,
Yeah, and I know it's a statewide issue, not just here with the signal or even other signals in the district. I know that there's a statewide study being done, and you're talking about the flashing yellow. Yellow.
Yeah,
Yeah, there, it rolled out and they had basic guidance on it a couple of years ago when it started. And they allowed it on higher speed highways and found that that was problematic. So they've kind of ratcheted that back. And that's why some of the changes here,
right.
but obviously because of the crashes. But I know there's a statewide study and statewide guidance that's going to come back out to kind of recalibrate all of that. So that there is consistency. And I know that's been part of the problem that
Right.
you're experiencing, but yep.
other questions on this one? I don't want to, we've got a few more we want to share, but other questions here? All right, we'll continue a little south. So, you know, I think you're all aware that where you're seeing the green color on the map here, the layout, that's where there's kind of an existing median opening right now that was put in a number of years ago. And really the location of that and the location of the existing 13 and 77 intersection doesn't meet what we would desire for spacing. And just, you know, knowing that and the distance of turn lanes and people accelerating and trying to get, you know, up to speed and everything, you know, we thought it'd be best, again, with the development opportunities that are going to be coming out in this area, to actually get a little bit better spacing. And so we've recommended that we shift that kind of access location a little bit further to the south. This, you know, extends, you know, Smiley on the east side, and then would tie into, you know, some type of a city street on the west side that would accommodate future development and all there. This again would be designed as a unsignalized, you know, 3/4 access type of intersection. Understand that there's, you know, been some development interest in this location. We did have this in the raise grant to be more on that short-term type of improvement. But, you know, again, that might even need to happen sooner, just depending on, you know, what happens with development in this area. And so again, we've been talking with staff a lot that, hey, when you get someone walking in the door and they start, you know, showing site plans and all that, you know, bring MNDOT into that conversation early, because, you know, here again, this isn't just something that we can necessarily, you know, go out and get, you know, developed in a couple of months, which, you know, some of those developments want and expect to happen. So the sooner that everyone can get, you know, see a concept, understand a concept, and build that into hopefully their site plans. That's really what you know, some of these improvements are being designed for, is to really advise that future development in the area. Yeah. It's conceptual, but usually those lanes, the turn lanes are I think they're 300 minimum, 300-foot minimum. So, you know, that we usually plan, I think it's somewhere in the 10 to 15 foot per car is what you plan on a sec. Yeah. But you know, again, it's conceptual. If we found like there was going to be a very, very high move, you can extend turn lanes 500 feet, you know what I mean? It's just, yeah. You want to be able to get them off, get them to, you know, hopefully you've got enough length so that they can actually get off and slow down. So you hope you don't have cars stacked the whole way, because the last thing you want is someone decelerating while in that, you know, leftmost travel lane, and you got people coming up on you at well, we'd hope they're doing the speed limit, but they may not be doing more than the speed limit, yeah. No, this is the location we've always had it.
No, it was up farther.
That's the extent of where the new acquired property is at. Where it's proposed right now, that's privately held land.
That's where the existing median opening is, and we've always had it move south.
I think. Considering there was, that's true.
I believe that's in the right location. Yeah, I believe so. That's the southernmost portion of the land that would align with the road on the south, because on the
Yeah.
southeast side is, yeah, it's ETOC property, which would align with the lift station. So we can confirm.
I think when
but that should
MnDOT
be the
was
right
even
spot.
contacted by someone, right, that was interested in this property, they were looking at the one that's in the very north.
That's what he said.
West
put it
corner.
forward farther, because now it doesn't service that.
Wasn't it right here?
Well, that's been this side of the city identified.
Yeah, I think all those maps show that as well.
That would not go onto the new city property though. That's still private property where that would dump onto. Correct? Yeah.
Well, looks like that's the southern 100 feet we purchased for the northern 100 feet of the lot. So the intersection will be crossing right about where the cement billboard. Right across from Highway Road, right by.
I can send them in.
Right on the hill there. Yeah, cause that's in the, that's where it takes that low dip. It's in the bottom. Correct?
I don't know that that's in a dip, I mean, as Steve was saying, there is a billboard, I know, right on the west side there today, right on the right of way line.
Yeah, no,
That- at that
that's in the
location.
low, that's in the bottom, that's in the low spot of the hole. It's south of the furniture store and stuff there. Cause that's where the low spot was where the original lift station was gonna go.
Yeah, this lined up with I know the mapping that the city provided us of the crossing where you were gonna have utilities go underneath the highway. That's this location, yes.
Yeah, that's south end.
Tom, you had us nervous there, like, we've been talking about this for a long time.
For a second there too, because I drive by it every day. Reason.
This is where you have utilities that are
Minutes
planned to
flea market.
go underneath?
I know that.
Well, that was the original plan, but weren't they talking about leaving the lift station up in front of the brewery and stuff now punching across there? That was,
Yeah, be down.
It is what it is. It is what it is.
All right, moving further to the south, this is near the church property. And this, would require, likely some frontage road improvements long-term as well in this area. But these are the improvements we're showing on 371. So removing the median opening and putting in J-turns both to the north and the south. So again, having all those movements be made with right turns and then left turns to do your J-turn in the median. This was another one that was included in the raised grant and, would be something, again, no immediate need at this location. This was not a location where we had a lot of safety issues. But again, it's an opportunity that if funding were available, this would be one that MnDOT would look to implement to, again, improve safety. But this would be one that I think, if funding were not available, this is not going to be your high priority location to come out and make improvements here, in the more near term. That would probably get pushed a little bit.
This concept could be modified.
Yeah, yep, yeah, and any of the J turns could be modified to allow those left turns like the 3/4. It's really based on what is the left turning need. Again, we know the church probably has a peak, right? I mean, there's probably a time when there's 100 cars or 200 cars or whatever the number might be in a shorter time period, but that's probably not a sustained throughout every day of the week and several hours of every day. So again, more engineering could be done, but yes, I mean, we've got, just like the concept you saw earlier, the ability to modify these before they're even implemented or even after they're implemented. If you're finding that you really need that left turn, it can be added later. And any of these, they can become signalized anytime later too, so. Mhm.
People are moving in and out of the space. And so, I mean, I don't want to do any funerals, but also that opportunity to make a left hand directly into our driveway as opposed to going to a J turn and coming down, and then we have, we probably have in numbers, if we have a parking lot, we're probably on the peak times, we're 300 to 400 cars, on a Sunday morning, at me, or on a Wednesday night, half that. So that J turn, it would come around, and then we have to get all the way over. If that, I'm making sense when I say that. And so that's part of why we took the initiative and are requiring, we probably get 95% compliance. And so people will, and then they'll go up to the intersection in front of Corella or 371 by the J turn to go southbound. So if there's a way that we preserve that left turn in, that would be a really sweet setup. I don't know if you have to talk about that.
The only other thing I'd add is there's no fatalities there that I know of. There have been quite a few accidents there and way more misses that both of us know about that don't get represented to
Sure.
you guys, but
All right.
we're just a few seconds away, seems like on a weekly
Sure.
basis to have a fatality there.
Yeah, and again, why we did include some of these in that race is because we'd like to make improvements
Right.
before. I mean, right? We're
Right.
so often with transportation projects, you hate to admit it, you're being reactionary. We'd
Right.
like to be a little bit, proactive here and get some of these implemented sooner than later. I've been warned, I got like 5 minutes because you guys have a planning commission. So I got a couple more. These are a location at Nashway where we've got a couple of options still being considered. This one is a right-in, right-out with a J-turn. What's challenging about this location is we even have a narrower median, so it's really difficult to get that J-turn close to the intersection of where you're making the right-in, right-out. So with all the locations, options at Nashway, we do propose closing that west leg. And so you can see the red box there, right where there's kind of the little crash icon. We would close that access point off because that is kind of one of the more challenging locations from a site visibility standpoint. But this one, would have a right out, again, median U-turns. The other option we have is in the next slide is what I referred to earlier when we said that we had a left in, left out, advance one. Oh, yeah, I did get it working here. So this is a left in, left out, or a green T type of intersection where, again, if you're say southbound and you wanted to turn onto Nashway, there would be a designated left turn lane. And so you could take a left in. This actually allows a left out as well. And the reason why we are considering that here is just, again, the distance people would have had to travel with the J turn. We're not saying that one's still not on the table, but this is just an alternative option for that. And by eliminating that west leg, it really eliminates the worst kind of condition that we've had out here with people trying to cross over in this location. So we do have two options that are moving forward at this location.
Are you all still intending to have the proposed paving and creation of the service drive alongside 371 in that narrow spot on Gull Lake and Holiday Bay Lake?
So that's back to this one. I think that's kind of our long-term goal is to have that continuous western frontage road where Hole in the Day would connect to Gull Lake Drive. That requires a much bigger investment because it actually includes moving the center line or moving the lanes on 371 as well a little bit to the east. And we know that that is challenging in itself. There's some environmental constraints out there with the wetlands and Hole in the Day Lake and all of that. You know, again, we're identifying that as being, again, kind of that long range goal, that in itself would be a fairly large investment. So again, that was not in the raised grant to do all that work.
Sure.
But- So we talked left in, left out. One last one here in the city of Nisswa. And again, further south of here, there's very similar, once you get in and around Sinasam and some of the other locations further to the south, is again, looking at closing some of those center medians, consolidating the locations where people can actually do the J-turn turnarounds. And so here, you know, again, we have a median U-turn for the southbound and the northbound direction. A little bit slight difference on this one is, as you see on the northern end there, it's not only just a J-turn median U-turn, but it actually would be a left turn into the service road in that location. So that's kind of how we're treating many of these. This again would be one that we would look at doing hopefully sooner than later. This is in our more near-term improvements that if the grant funding were to come through, this would be an improvement we would try to advance. And so that's the concepts. Again, we've got roughly 18 throughout the entire corridor, but these are the ones we wanted to just present to you all tonight. Other questions? Feedback?
What is the next step?
Our next step is, again, we've been working with staff on developing our implementation plan. And so we've broken things down into near term, midterm, long term. And just generally those buckets are the near term being in the next, 5 to 7, 8 years. Midterm would be like somewhere 2035 or later. And then long term, I mean, like we've got, an interchange at Highland Scenic down on the very south end of our corridor might be a 30+ year type of thing, because we just know that, it's not needed today. It's not warranted. MnDOT's not going to go and look for $40 million in their program to build an interchange where it's really not needed. But the city is finding it like, hey, this would be really desirable for us. Could they chase money and go after it and do a locally led project? Absolutely. But in our implementation plan, that's a very long term. A WIDA interchange is a very long term kind of concept too. So
on the ones you went over tonight, I think there were 6.
yeah.
Which one? Which of those?
Only the one at the county row at 77 and 13 was not in our raised grant. Now, we've taken those near-term ones and further broken them down. If grant funding doesn't become available, where would our priorities be?
Right.
And really in this area, it was the new intersection, because we know there's development pressure coming. I keep turning this off, or is it? Shoot. Oh.
The Smiley Road one? Or the-
Yeah. I'm trying to go back. Oh. This would be in the near term. 'Cause
Okay.
again, development we know is coming. This would be probably more in that near term because we've had safety problems out in this area. Longer term, this is in our longer term,
Okay.
so this would not be in that kind of happening, more immediately. Get going the right way here. Oops, I'm going the wrong way. This is not in our more immediate. This would, again, if funding restraints were there, this would be, hey, if a problem were to arise, if those close calls became a problem, we'd have to do something. But right now, we're not showing this. Nashua is probably one of the top 2 in the entire corridor.
Oh,
So
okay.
this one is sooner than later. Again, this has not been just a single incident. This has been a pretty historical crash location. And then the last one here, this would again be something just not
Right.
on that critical path. Yeah.
Okay. So when is the next time we would maybe?
Well, we're trying to
Reconnect
get,
or hear
yeah,
from
we're
the-
trying to get our final study report done. That would be shared with your staff and all that if they wanted to bring that to you all. We don't have anything scheduled in our, final steps of closing out the corridor study. I know just the way MnDOT does project development, if and when any of these start to advance, there's a whole bunch of design and a whole bunch, I mean, there's a lot more public involvement, much more project development that would need to happen. And they would be back with their staff or another, whatever, at that time, so.
Yep. So so it doesn't end here. I mean, we've got a lot more steps in the process. And the other thing I want to mention too is back to the 1377 comments is Crow Wing County needs to be part of that conversation too. And I know Tim Bray's been a active member of our team since the beginning too, and a very staunch supporter of this process because those safety improvements, especially when you get down into the FAD, are pretty important to the county to lead that. So he's been really a strong proponent of those safety improvements. So I guess, again, from a partnership, and the county board, at least the current county board has told us, yes, we understand that. We know that we're gonna have to put some resources into implementing this plan as a partner. So that's helpful to know. So anyway, thank you for allowing us to come back and visit with you, and certainly mayor and council members, feel free to reach out to us anytime. Happy to help in any way we can.
Do you guys have any questions? Anything else?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Yep.
A motion to adjourn would now be in order.
So moved. Second.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are. What? I think so, yes.
It's Mark and Jesse.
Mark and Jesse, yeah. Wait, was it?
Yeah, Bruce.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.